Have you ever seen a woman walk into a courtroom in handcuffs, only to leave it holding the truth that could burn the whole system down? This isn't just another legal drama. It's the story of how one federal agent went undercover, got arrested on purpose, and turned the tables on a corrupt cop who thought he owned the law. What happened inside that courtroom? Let's just say he never saw her badge coming. Let me take you to the beginning. The room on the 7th floor of the DOJ headquarters buzzed with quiet urgency. Fluorescent lights cast a cold glow across a steel conference table, sterile and unyielding. On the walls, massive digital screens displayed maps of Charlotte, North Carolina, highlighted zones, arrest clusters, red-marked cases. A thick file stamped classified and titled Operation Silence Bench sat in the center, unopened but radiating weight. Renee Caldwell stepped into the room, posture straight, dressed in regulation gray with sleeves cuffed just above her wrists. Her stride was measured, strong, but it faltered just slightly as she crossed the threshold. She had walked into rooms like this before, but this one felt different, heavier. Her expression remained composed, but the tension in her jaw betrayed her. She knew exactly what she was walking into, and what it could cost. Deputy Attorney General Elias Trenton didn't waste time. "Charlotte's compromised," he said flatly, gesturing toward the screen. "Judges, cops, defense attorneys, some play blind, some play dirty, all protected by one thing: silence." He tapped a button. A face filled the screen. Victor Sloan, a decorated officer with a smug grin and eyes too cold for any man sworn to protect. He's made a career out of framing the vulnerable. No oversight, no accountability. Diana Cole, Renee's direct superior, slid a folder toward her. "We need someone inside. Someone who doesn't flinch." Inside was a photo, a black college student in cuffs, eyes hollow. Planted cocaine, 4 years, no appeal. Renee's hand tightened around the folder. "The bait will be set at Velvet South Lounge," Elias continued. "He finds you, he arrests you. No warrant, no cause. That's our opening." His voice lowered, sharp as steel. "You'll be arrested under a fake name, a fake past. You go in alone. If your cover breaks, we disavow." Silence followed. Renee nodded once. No bravado, just a breath. "Understood." As the meeting closed, Deanna touched Renee's shoulder. Gentle, almost maternal. "If anyone can pull this off, it's you." Renee turned to leave. Her steps echoed in the hallway. She didn't look back. But inside her chest, her badge felt heavier than it ever had. Friday night draped Velvet South Lounge in its usual haze of jazz and deception. The scent of citrus cocktails swirled in the air, blending with low piano notes and the hum of a crowd lost in velvet shadows. Purple neon bathed the room in an almost dreamlike shimmer, if dreams could suffocate. Renee Caldwell entered without fanfare. A long black dress hugged her frame just enough to attract interest without provoking suspicion. Her hair was swept back in a loose knot. A gloss of lipstick, just enough shimmer. She took a seat near the bar, close to a mirror-lined wall that allowed her to watch without looking. Her fingers curled lightly around a glass of club soda. She waited. The second drink arrived. The waiter didn't speak, just set it down with quiet precision. Beneath the base of the glass, folded once and crisp, was a white slip. One corner marked with the DOJ cipher. Confirmation. The package had been delivered. A moment later, a man with a slouched white shirt and a forgettable face brushed past her stool. One blink, one motion, and something slipped into her handbag. Renee didn't look down, but her pulse thudded in her throat. She placed her hand over the bag. It was there, small, dense, damning. Then the air shifted. Victor Sloan entered the room like a lion on patrol. Tall, pressed uniform, badge gleaming under the soft gold lighting. He didn't scan, he didn't ask. He looked up once and saw her. 3 seconds. That's all he needed. He crossed the room with arrogant calm. "Evening," he said smoothly. "We've had a report of suspicious activity." Mind if I take a look in that bag, or should I call backup? Renee blinked. Played it perfectly. I think you're mistaken. I didn't. Sloan didn't wait. He reached in, retrieved the baggie, held it up to the light like a prize catch. Looks like we've got what we need. Click. The cuffs snapped tight around her wrist. Outside, the world watched, phones up. Flash after flash lit her face as Sloan led her away like a trophy. Renee didn't fight. She didn't cry, but she stared ahead, her jaw tight. Not afraid. Just furious. And beneath that fury, a whisper rising only to herself. You just gave me the opening I needed. Courtroom 3B inside Mecklenburg Justice Center felt more like a tomb than a place of justice. Its high ceiling loomed with a faded grandeur, casting long shadows beneath dim yellow lights that flickered overhead. The gallery was sparsely filled, an old reporter scribbling half-hearted notes, two retirees whispering behind newspapers, and a few off-duty cops in wrinkled polos, arms crossed like gatekeepers. Renee Caldwell was led into the room through the side door, flanked by a silent bailiff. Dressed in a gray detention uniform, her wrists were bound lightly in soft cuffs. Her steps were steady but slow, deliberate. Every footfall echoed against the marble floor, every step a blow to pride she'd long since swallowed. Her face held no expression, but her eyes burned, sharp, calculating, watchful. Calvin Reed, seated at the defense table, gave her a brief nod. He looked every bit the overworked public defender. Loose tie, worn briefcase, tired smile. Exactly as planned. Across the aisle stood Ada Beth Monroe. Steel gray suit, thin wire glasses. Her stare was direct, unapologetic. The defendant was caught with controlled substances, she stated coolly. On her person, inside a known nightlife establishment. Tip came from a reliable source. The arresting officer found the evidence firsthand. Victor Sloan took the stand like it belonged to him. His uniform was crisp, his tone smooth. I received a tip, suspicious behavior. Upon checking the defendant's bag, I discovered the narcotics. No hesitation, no stutter, just another performance in a script he'd perfected. Calvin rose slowly, asking only what was necessary. Did anyone witness the alleged transaction? No, sir. Any surveillance footage? Negative, but my informant has never failed me. Renee sat still, hands clenched beneath the table, white-knuckled. Her pulse hammered in her ears, but her face betrayed nothing. Stay quiet, stay unreadable. Let him think. He's winning. During a short recess, Calvin slipped her a note, folded in half, disguised as legal paperwork. Inside, 6 words. Overpass Lot C, midnight. I know. Her hands trembled, slightly, not from fear, from hope. Backstage, Camilla Park's voice crackled through Renee's secure earpiece. Sloan's account shows unexplained deposits, tied to cases like yours. We're close, Renee. Renee didn't look back as she returned to her seat. Her heart pounded harder now, not from dread, but from the faintest, dangerous taste of momentum. Lot C beneath the downtown overpass was a place most people avoided after dark. Concrete pillars loomed like silent sentinels. A single flickering street lamp cast more shadow than light, and the wind slithered through the gaps with a whistling moan that sounded too much like a warning. Renee stood at the edge of it all, the hood of her black jacket pulled low, hands buried deep in her pockets. The earpiece buzzed softly. Calvin's voice came through, steady and low. We've got eyes on perimeter. Camilla's scanning nearby traffic. Renee exhaled. No retreat, she whispered. We keep going. Footsteps. A figure emerged from the dark. Thin, hunched, hoodie sagging off his frame. His voice was scratchy, nervous. You came alone? I did, she said, eyes locked onto his. I worked for him, Sloan. He paid me to plant that bag, and others, years of it. Who else? Renee asked. He hesitated. There's a judge, name starts with Leonard Ash. Headlights exploded across the lot. A black SUV roared toward them, engine snarling like a beast, tires screeched, then gunfire, loud, brutal. The man beside her jolted back, a red mist blooming across his chest as he dropped to the pavement. Renee dove behind a rusted dumpster, adrenaline ripping through her like fire. A bullet tore the edge of her sleeve, another ricocheted off the concrete inches from her leg. Heart pounding, she clutched the voice recorder in her pocket, still lit, still blinking red. "Don't drop it. Don't let it go," she murmured, tears stinging her eyes. From the alleyway, Calvin's SUV came barreling in. Camilla leaned out the window yelling, "Move!" Renee bolted. Calvin flung the door open. She leapt inside just as another shot cracked through the night. The door slammed. They peeled out of the lot, tires screaming, the SUV in pursuit until it suddenly vanished into the night. Inside the car, Renee sat, shaking, fingers white around the recorder. "I got the start of it," she gasped. "He named Sloan. He was about to say Ashcroft." Camilla's voice cracked. "I called an ambulance, but we can't go back. It's too hot." Renee stared at the floor, tears falling silently. "I won't let him die for nothing." She clutched the recorder like it was his heart, like it was hers. Courtroom 3C was nothing short of electric. Every seat was filled. Reporters shoulder to shoulder, cameras mounted on tripods, lenses tracking every blink. Even the gallery's front row was crowded with local politicians and watchdog attorneys, their silence louder than words. Bright fluorescent lights bore down from above like interrogation beams, leaving no shadow untouched. Renee Caldwell sat at the defendant's table, still in character, her gray suit plain, her posture reserved. But there was steel behind her calm. Her hair was pulled into a tight bun, and her eyes scanned the room, unflinching. Calvin leaned close and murmured, "If you're gonna play your hand, today's the day." Victor Sloan took the stand again. His voice was smooth, his story rehearsed, but something had shifted. There was a nervous uptick in his tone, a too eager rhythm as he added details never mentioned before. Beth Monroe, the ADA, furrowed her brow at each new embellishment. She didn't trust Renee, but she wasn't sold on Sloan either. Not anymore. Then Renee stood. "Your Honor, may I speak?" she asked. Judge Naomi Fletcher shot her a hard look. "This isn't your time. No unsanctioned statements." Renee didn't argue. She simply held the judge's gaze, firm, unwavering, not defiant but deeply certain. A tense beat of silence passed. Then Judge Fletcher exhaled. 90 seconds, use them wisely." Renee took one slow step forward. "My name is Renee Caldwell. I am a federal investigator with the United States Department of Justice." Gasps broke the silence. Cameras swiveled. Ada Monroe dropped her pen, and in one fluid motion, Renee reached into her jacket and held up her badge. Golden, polished, blinding under the courtroom lights. "I've been undercover, investigating Officer Sloan for evidence tampering, coercion, and bribery," she continued, voice low but carrying. "And I have reason to believe he didn't act alone." Victor Sloan turned ghost pale. He looked at his attorney, then back at Renee. His lips moved, but no sound came out. In the back, Tony Marquez rose from his seat. His hand trembled on the pew. Then, silently, he slipped through the side door. Renee caught the movement and nodded once. Calvin rose, quietly slipping out to follow. Applause erupted. Shouts of "Justice" rang from the gallery. An elderly black woman stood with tears in her eyes, whispering, "Finally." And for the first time, Sloan didn't speak. He couldn't. The tide had turned. The federal courtroom felt like a fortress. Marshals lined every wall, their uniforms pressed, eyes scanning. The public gallery overflowed. Senators, journalists, families of the wrongfully convicted. No one whispered. No one moved. All eyes turned to the woman now standing front and center. Renee Caldwell walked in, head high. No longer a defendant but a sworn federal agent. Her black DOJ blazer hugged her frame, badge gleaming over her heart. She didn't need to speak. Her presence alone commanded silence. Then came Tony Marquez. He took the stand with trembling hands, sweat beading at his temple. His voice wavered at first, but grew steadier with every word. "I was scared," he admitted, glancing toward Renee, "until I saw she wasn't. he confessed to planting evidence, falsifying reports, and funneling cash bribes between Officer Sloan and Judge Leonard Ashcroft. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Camilla Park followed next. The screens lit up, audio clips, transaction logs, emails coded and decoded. Lines of communication from Sloan to Ashcroft, all pointing to pay-for-verdict schemes that stripped hundreds of defendants of fair trials. "This isn't a theory," Camilla said flatly. "It's a system." Judge Leonard Ashcroft was called to the front. He entered with the slow gait of a man used to power, but today he wore no gravitas, just fear. When questioned, he tried denial, but the proof was undeniable. One final email flashed on screen, his approval to bury a case. The silence that followed was suffocating. Judge Fletcher's voice rang out, "Issue the warrants." The courtroom exploded. Sloan and Ashcroft were cuffed on the spot, flashbulbs popping, shouts echoing. Renee didn't flinch. She simply exhaled. Then ADA Beth Monroe rose. Her voice cracked. "I failed in my duty. I ask this court to reopen all cases tied to these men. Over 200. She turned to Renee. "And thank you for reminding us what justice should look like." Weeks later, Renee stood in Washington. The president pinned the Medal of Valor to her chest. But Renee didn't speak of heroism. "This is for those who never made it out of the courtroom," she said, eyes shining. And no one ever asked why. Later that night, she opened an email. "I'm alive. Keep fighting." One tear fell, not from sorrow, but release. As dawn broke over Charlotte, Renee stepped outside Mecklenburg Justice Center. Her badge glinted in the sunlight. She turned away, walking into a city finally ready to clean its own house. In the end, justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it moves quietly through the courage of those willing to stand alone, to risk everything, and to speak the truth when silence feels safer. Power can be borrowed, corrupted, even feared. But truth? Truth has staying power, and when it's finally revealed, it doesn't just expose the guilty, it reminds us all why justice matters. If this story moved you, let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe for more powerful stories that shine a light in the darkest corners. Thank you for watching.